The Calgary Flames roster and taxi squad are set. Eric, the training camp has come to an end, so why don't we start there? What did we learn about the Flames in their camp?
Well, they didn't have a lot of questions to have answered. This is a team that's largely returning a veteran core from last year. And, but one of the questions that did have to be answered was who's going to run the number one power play on this team. And that was answered emphatically by young Rasmus Anderson. This is a kid with a tremendous poise, a huge slap shot. He's got some jam. He's got all the tools that they think you need to run a power play from the top end there. And so he's going to step in and run that first power play unit. Mark Giordano will run the second power play unit. And that's a bit of a different look for a team that's been hoping and praying that a guy like Rasmus Anderson would finally be ready to step up and take that role on.
That's a good point. And I think he looks, as you say, poised, but he looks ready. His compete is there. I know they're very high on him. He does have that jam and that confidence. So it seems like he has just taken that compete, that confidence, and that commitment to not only being here as a member of the Flames, but certainly in that new role as the quarterback for the power play. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the season. That's going to be a great storyline to watch throughout. But I also know with all the new faces that came into town, it's interesting. We're talking about pairings, and at least up front anyhow, we're talking about some existing players, as you mentioned, off the top. So it seems like overnight, Eric, there was a bit of a shift in the philosophy or identity of this team. We're talking about Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan maybe taking a bit of a back seat. We'll see how it plays out. But with the emergence of Matthew Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm as a top pairing, or maybe it's all interchangeable, we'll see. Andrew Mangiapane and Michael Backlund as well. So the pairings, it's all about now rolling their lines, much like you've seen other teams. Vegas comes to mind. But what was your take on that?
Well, it's interesting. The face of this franchise for the last handful of years has been Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau. And as a pair, only one duo has been on more goals together in the last 5 years, and that's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They only have 2 more goals than the Flames duo. So to think about breaking those guys up was something that Jeff Ward didn't even contemplate. Yeah. They're also best friends off the ice. What he did tell me in the offseason was, you know what, we want to put Elias Lindholm up the middle. That means he's coming off the top line and going to be starting another line that would maybe rival him. Well, when you put Matthew Tkachuk with him, it's an interesting duo because Lindholm led the team in goals last year. Tkachuk led the team in points. By any other explanation, most people would say, well, there's your top line. We're going to have an interesting debate over the course of the next month, too, maybe all season long. What is the top line of the Calgary Flames? The one thing that the coach will always say, and he won't number them. I tried to get him to number them. There's no way he's numbering 1 and 2. He says it's all about creating matchups. And when you think about it, it really makes sense. The strength of the Calgary Flames is its depth. Has been all summer. They knew that that's one thing they want to basically weaponize. With that depth, they can create matchups so that the other teams cannot focus on Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. They may have to focus on Lindholm and Tkachuk. Either way, it'll be interesting to see who emerges as number one, or at least who gets the most points.
And certainly when asked about that, does that need to be addressed? The general manager, Brad Treliving, said this has got to be earned. This is still on paper ahead of what we're going to see on ice. And I think matchups, as you say, are going to be the deciding factor. And who can you hide? Who do you have to key in on? And who's going to give you the favorable one?
And I'll just throw in there, at this point in time, they've been revolving the right side for all 4 lines, basically. So Monahan and Gaudreau look like they may start with Dominic Simon. Dylan Dubé, who's emerging as a star in this league, I really believe this will be his year to break up. He is so far the placeholder on that top line. I'll call it the top line, Tkachuk and Lindholm. If Dubé's a fit there, that could be a really, really dangerous line because Dubé was arguably their best player in the playoffs.
I'm with you on that one. I think he looks as though he's about to pop, and we saw glimpses of it with that explosive goal in the postseason up in Edmonton. He looks ready. He's probably their fastest skater, and here's a player who has continued to marinate and kind of develop his game. He was in Stockton, and he was waiting and biding his time. He's learned, and now he looks as though he might be ready. That will be an interesting storyline as well. And I think Andrew Mangiapane, who is a player that were talking about that could be in that national conversation a lot more as a player to watch. He has just been a dog on a bone. No surprise. Every year he just continues to elevate.
And this is a guy who was a 6th-round draft pick. He's under 6 feet tall. To have him stand there yesterday and say, I believe I'm an elite player in the National Hockey League. People are like, wait a second. We don't hear that from 6th-rounders who are undersized. The steps that he's taken, if he can make that other monumental step, he may just be an elite player in the league at some point in time. His hero is Marty St. Louis. He took a while to develop. He was undersized. Mangiapane's hoping to do the same thing. He'll do so alongside Michael Backlund this year. And you're right, he's been probably their best player in camp so far, based on 2 scrimmages. Tough to say.
Yeah, well, he was a 6th-round pick who was passed over the year before, and here he is, all kinds of chances. The chances that he generates, Flames fans will be salivating, and now he's just got to figure out a way to cap it off, because it looks, if you look at his chances, Eric, it looks like he could be a 30-goal scorer one day, just the amount of opportunities he creates, but don't want to get ahead of ourselves. All right, I want to talk to you about a term. Everybody is using salary cap gymnastics. Brad Treliving took it one step further and said, yes, it is salary cap Cirque du Soleil, and he has had to be very flexible when it comes to what he has got to try to do to get a little bit of relief, but still have some options. And Derek Ryan was on the waiver wire. That caused a lot of, scratching of the heads, at least when it first happened, but it did make sense.
It does make sense. And, I thought Brad's always got these great quotes. He said, listen, guys who are on the taxi squads, it's not like they're going to be walking around with sandwich boards saying, I'm on the taxi squad. These are members of our team. It's a simple paper transaction before 5 o'clock every night. And you're going to see it around the league every single night. Players are going to be shifted on and off the taxi squad. And now that he's passed waivers, and keep in mind, I think some people thought it was maybe reckless or dangerous to put Derek Ryan or Oliver Shillington on waivers. There were almost 100 players in the league on waivers yesterday. And it was almost like there was a bit of a gentleman's agreement between GMs. We're not going to touch too many guys. He's making over $3 million a year. No one's got room for that sort of addition anyway. So he's on the squad. He will be a member of this team with regularity. As a matter of fact, I would submit to you he'll probably play 80% of the games this year for the Calgary Flames. So it was a paper transaction. It doesn't mean that he's fallen out of favor. Derek Ryan's a very important part of this team. And last year, as you recall, in the playoffs, he was one of the better lines. So, don't think that they've forgotten about him or Oliver Shillington. You'll see them with regularity.
So we learned that Rasmus Andersson is the new quarterback for the Flames on the power play. That's new. We learned that the pairings have kind of shifted the identity a little bit. They've got some pieces they can plug in up front to make those pairings pretty solid trios. And we learned that the Calgary Flames have some depth, and Brad Treliving gives himself a bit of space ahead of the NHL opener for the Flames. It's on Thursday in Winnipeg.